안녕하세요. 오늘은 UCA와 관련된 연찬을 하겠습니다. UCA는 파티하고 학위연계를 맺고 있는 학교인데요. 그 UCA의 지금 디자인 학과의 디렉터를 맡고 있는 톰 너시의 그 개인 작업에 대한 좀 소개를 하고, UCA에 관심 있는 배우미들이 그쪽에 학위연계를 하러 갔을 때 어떤 수업을 들을 수 있을지, 뭐 어떤 작업을 하는 선생님을 만날 수 있을지 이런 것들을 좀 같이 들어보는 시간을 가지려고 합니다. 그래서 톰은 어, 코로나 전에 파티에 방문을 했었고요. 그때 같이 파티 학생들을 만나서 파티 배우미들을 만나서 뭐 면담도 해주고 UCA 학위 연계 과정에 대한 설명도 해주고 또 그 자리에서 뭐 포트폴리오 인터뷰라든지 이런 것들을 통해서 UCA에 진학을 한 뒤에 어떤 공부를 하면 좋을 것 같다 이런 것까지 같이 다 상의를 나눠서 파티에 대한 되게 좋은 기억을 가지고 있었고 이번에 파티에 그 이런 온라인으로라도 좀 작업을 소개하는 시간을 가지면 좋겠다라고 좀 제안을 줘서 이런 자리를 만들게 됐습니다. 음, Hello everyone. Today I have invited Tom, who is a director for the communication program at UCA. PaTI and UCA are having a very special relationship, collaborating together with a progression agreement. So some PaTI students have studied in PaTI and later uh, moved to UCA to study more there and get a degree from UCA. And today we are going to have a talk from Tom about his personal practices and also he will probably talk a little bit about UCA program too. But so has visited like Pati a couple of years ago before pandemic
Yes.
and met students
Yeah.
and he had a very good memory with Pati and we have this today's special time with Tam. So please welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for asking me to do a talk. I've got really fond memories of coming to visit you, to see your kitchen downstairs and your fire, different levels with fires, and your garden up on the roof as well. So I have a really fond memory of visiting you. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about my own practice. I'm not really going to talk about UCA so much. I'll talk a little bit at the end, but I'm gonna start off by sharing my screen. I'm just going to do one last sound test, if I may, just to double check that the sound is working. So
Mhm.
if you could just let me know, please. Is that working okay?
It's working well.
Great. Okay, so my name's Tom Northey, and I'm Director of School for Communications at
Tom,
UCA. Yes?
in your screen, there's a in the center. There's a
Sorry.
yep, yep. You
There
can
we
you move
go.
it? Yes, that's good.
There we go. Okay. Is that better?
That's
Yes.
better. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Director of School of Communications at UCA Farnham, and we have graphic design courses and illustration courses, user experience courses, interface and interactive design courses. They're both BA and MA level. So I'm going to introduce myself. I am an academic. I see myself as an algorist. I'm very much interested in computer generated and sound generated design and art. And I'm just going to start with a 5-minute video just showing some of my work. And this is a variety of work that I've done over the last couple of years. So this work was developed as part of my master's, and it was looking at how you can use robots and mechanics to create visual expression and drawing robots. So these are a number of different prototypes that I did, looking at things like beam robotics, looking at solar power, and just really experimenting and playing. So I'll just let the video play for a couple of minutes. Okay, so that just gives a brief introduction to the type of work that I've been doing over the last couple of years. And I suppose what I wanted to do is kind of express my kind of approach to designing. So I'm really interested in making making machines that remove the designer or the artist from the actual artwork itself. And I work in both analog and digital, but mainly sonic arena at the minute. I'm really influenced by the algorithms, and I'm particularly interested in parametric design. And I suppose with the rise of with AI, I think it's easy to forget about parametric design, but actually using parameters, using a set of variables to produce something actually, to my mind, is perhaps the most exciting and interesting part of making work. So I'm going to just start off by showing a project that I was developing. So this was developing a system using liquid and magnets to produce a typeface. So this is using a liquid called ferrous liquid, and I developed a system where I could essentially make a matrix to produce different forms within the liquid itself. The next project I wanted to show was part of my master's, and I was looking at sound waves and visualizing sound in such a way that people could interact with it. So that this is the final kind of output from the project, and this machine could produce 6 million different drawings based on essentially one interface and 2 dials. And this was designed and manufactured by myself using a laser cutter, producing all the electronics for it using Arduino, and it was developing and beginning to understand what it means to make a system and then give it to people to play with to produce perhaps very unexpected results. The outcome actually is a representation of 2 sound waves, and it was a really fun project to put together. So these are just a couple of examples of work from that. I produced a archive book of every experiment I did for that project. It was about 60 millimeters thick, A4, and through that you could see the process of how it developed. The second project I wanted to show you again was using Arduino. As part of my study, I was given a square to investigate. I spent 1 year investigating what it means to be a square, and I came to the point of really not enjoying using squares and thinking about squares, but I thought, how could I produce squares out of items or things that aren't naturally square? And this brought me on to cymatics and producing resonance through water to make patterns in images. So I developed a system using Arduino again, and built this machine, the harmonic resonance magneto, that would make squares on water. And so it became essentially like an installation piece, and again a very interactive and fun piece for people to play with. And some of the images that are produced are quite wonderful, considering that water doesn't naturally want to be in a square formation. I'm also interested in code and artwork, particularly interested in using processing, which is great fun. But I'm more interested in how can you then use these algorithms to produce physical output. So this is a silk scarf series that I did using processing to produce the artwork. Okay, so from those studies, I set up a pseudonym which was Didymus Sound System, and I became more interested in actually production of sound. And I produced a number of EPs a number of years ago, Omnipresent on SoundCloud. It's no longer there, unfortunately. Universum. And this was looking at composition, looking at algorithms to produce sound, to produce repetition, to kind of explore soundscapes, I suppose. And I got really interested in that area. Another album or EP I produced was Fur. And so as I was sort of going through making these, I was finding samples, I was doing the composition myself, but it was never really that meaningful. And I wanted to find more meaning in my work. So as part of the research fund at UCA, Farnham here, I put in a research bid to produce a project called Hidden Sound Lost Language. And essentially it was looking at my past and looking at my roots. I'm half Swiss, half English, and I grew up between England, mainly in England, but also in Switzerland. And I found that as I visited Switzerland, as I got older, I kind of understood language, but I didn't. At the same time, when I go back now, I kind of understand what people are talking about, but I don't. And so what I wanted to do was a sound study to try and find my Swiss language, to find my other half and my roots. So the project ended up being a variety of things. It was a combination of photography, audio, archiving, and live performance. And it explores Switzerland, in particular Bern. And it was a kind of a journey through sound, essentially. And I based myself down in Geneva, and you can see Geneva to Bern. There is a variety of languages that are spoken as you go through Switzerland. So down in the south around Geneva, you've got a lot of French-speaking people. As you go towards Bern, you've got a Bernese, and then as you go further up towards Zurich, you have more of a Swiss German. And so what I wanted to do is explore language as I traveled, but also just explore the sounds of my childhood, essentially, and to try and find that. So I set myself a series of kind of journeys in and around Switzerland, and got a Swiss pass and went off on various journeys with a Zoom sound recorder, and plotted GPS locations of where I did recordings, and off I went. So this was Geneva to Interlaken, through the mountains. It's a long journey. It's 6.5 hours, and I essentially went through and just looked, thought, drew, collected, photographed, and began to get together a number of sounds, not knowing what I was going to do with those sounds. But as I went through, I could begin to feel rhythm in various things. So naturally, you can feel a rhythm in the train. Up through the mountains towards Interlaken, Okay, so the next journey was from Geneva to Lucerne. It was 2 hours and 50 minutes. It's quite a big journey again, going through Bern, and actually as you go through, there's a number of different languages spoken along this line, and I found that particularly interesting. I also did location recording as well. So this was in Lucerne itself, a really beautiful monument to the fallen, and I spent about 3 or 4 hours here with a Zoom recorder, just recording all sorts of different things, various conversations, walking around different places, looking at the echoes of things, listening to the birds, so really beginning to kind of explore the actual soundscape around this space. I went out on the lakes as well, and began to think about times when I was a child, going to these different places. The next journey was Geneva to Bern, and this was more familiar because I spent a lot of time as a child to and from Bern. And Bern itself, I hadn't been to for a number of years, and I decided to just let my subconscious sort of take me around to various spots that I used to go to as a child without a map. And I recorded GPS locations and sounds with those GPS locations, as well as photography. So this is along the Aare river in central Bern. There's a park with a set of swimming pools, and I remember going here as a child, swimming, and in the summer running around. So some really interesting acoustics in this space, because the pool was emptied because it was the winter, and the way the bells resonated around those spaces I found particularly interesting and exciting. I also found little areas that I remembered as a child playing as well, and for me this brought back a lot of memories of space, but also of language as well. And then I did a number of walks along the Aare River itself, and got a lot of inspiration from it, and the kind of the peace of the river. I also went to other locations outside of central Bern, just places that I used to go to as a child, and met family and did interviews, and really began to think about, okay, well, what does this space mean to me? So I did a lot of collection, and it was that I had masses and masses of files, and I came back to England feeling quite perplexed and not really knowing what to do with everything. So I decided to just start by looking at the year. How is the year made up? How does it work? And then I started thinking about speakers and how they're constructed, and thinking about the different types of sound that you get from different types of speakers. I investigated how speakers were produced and made. I looked at also things like trumpets and trombones, and began to put together some sort of symbols that kind of represented what I was looking at. And during this time, I also was investigating, or could I perhaps make some kind of 3D installation as part of this artwork that I was producing. I also did a lot of electronics as part of the project, looking at amplifiers. So these are a couple of amplifiers that I customized and put together. But I really began to think, well, what is it that I'm trying to produce? So initially, I started by producing a number of speakers based on A, aesthetics, B, on the type of sounds that I wanted to come out of the speakers, but also looking at things like Alp horns that they use in Switzerland. So you can see here, this is just some of my different experiments using a laser cutter and some MDF and making prototypes before I produced them. And sort of made a series of speakers. Each had different kind of acoustic values, and were really quite fun to make. And I purposely just went for a really lo-fi aesthetic with these that wasn't particularly well finished. I also looked at wood turning as well and began to think, well, can I produce some speakers, some kind of speakers out of wood turning? I did a series of experiments with that as well. So it got me thinking about sound waves. It got me thinking about objects. It got me thinking about producing things with an aesthetic quality. And then I started to produce these different, more finished speakers, I suppose. This is a tweeter with a kind of a really interesting aesthetic that kind of reflects the sound that it was producing. I kind of got to a blocking point, and I just thought I need to go back to who I am and what I'm interested in, and I got quite lost in the project. So I decided to produce an album in the end, an EP called Schlafly, and it was made up of a variety of sounds that I then sampled and then created music from using a package called Ableton. And then I did a series of live performances with that, improvising with other artists to kind of really find meaning within that project. So in the end, I wanted to kind of compile this all together, make it into one finalized project, and I produced a 12-inch EP called Are Gurten, and it was based upon the samples that I'd found, and it was, I suppose, musically trying to represent my kind of trip and understanding of what I had been through. So one was based on Are, which is the river, and it was quite a very kind of lo-fi sounding track. And the other one was based on Gurten, which is above the city, looking over. It's another place that I fondly remember as a child. And so I put together and mastered the vinyl. I'd never mastered vinyl for production before, learned how to do that. And then I produced a series of directions based on GPS location from where I was staying to the locations. And so as a user, you can actually find the location of where I've done the recordings, where samples are from, You can find the GPS location, so you can actually go and find that exact location of how it was, where it was recorded, and it becomes a really kind of interactive piece. I also produced the artwork for the front of the album using two different representation points of Are and Girton to kind of visually represent the project, and you can see how it ties back into my original work. So this is the final artwork. It's in the PaTI archives. It's a 12-inch EP, and you can speak to JOK and listen to it. I can also send some other copies over. It was a really kind of exciting and fun project, and something that I'm very proud of. It's sold in Soho in London at Phonica Records, and I sent it all over the world to various different companies, lecturers, all sorts of different places that I thought would be interested in the project. And as I said, it's sold in Phonica Records, and it's also in the permanent collection at the British Library as well. So just in closing, I just wanted to recommend a book, and you've probably already seen this book and have already read it, but I found that actually Drawing a Tree is a really great representation of what it's not like to be a creative person. Often we think that being creative is very stage-led, and one thing leads to the next, that leads to the next, and it's all very neat and tidy. But actually, the reality of making work is much more messy than that. And I suppose what I'm trying to say here is I want to encourage you to explore outside of your comfort zones as creative people, and to enjoy the kind of the lost areas at the edges of your creative practice. I do have a QR code here, which is a link to my research work if you'd like to read a bit more about other projects that I've done. So I'll leave that on the screen, but I'm going to stop sharing now and open up to some questions, if I may. I can't hear you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. It was very interesting. So it's very recent work, you said?
This was quite old. This is a couple of years old. This project.
Couple
I
of
have
years.
more recent work on the QR code that I
Oh, I see.
put on the thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I have one little question. Just before that, 질문이 있거나 궁금한 게 있으신 분은 유튜브에 댓글로 남겨주면은 제가 확인하고 질문을 하겠습니다. I just mentioned if you have any question, please leave a message.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you were trying to build a typeface with a liquid magnet?
Yes.
And so did you build like many of them, or you were just trying to a couple of?
Yeah, I did a variety of different things. I just showed a quick example, but I did a whole variety of different ones and with different grid systems. And you can do really, really big ones, short ones. Yeah. So it was quite a fun project.
And you actually made them into font that you can use, or?
No, it was purely a in-person whilst you were there thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I see. And
yeah.
And you said you were also very into typography.
Yes. So go on.
Yeah. And now it seems like very also into sound. And
yes.
Can you tell a little bit about how they work each other for you?
Sure. So I trained as a graphic designer. I work commercially in the UK. I've worked for lots of big brands like British Airways and Nike and Decca Records and various other people. And I found that quite satisfying, but there was no opportunity to be really, really expressive for yourself as an artist, because you're always working for a client. And so I transitioned from there to running my own business. I did a lot of work in the Middle East and places like that. I can show some if you'd like to see it.
Sure. Yeah.
And let me just grab it quickly, if I may. Would you like to see that?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
If you have time.
Yeah, sure. We have a little bit of time, so.
Okay, so yeah, so I did a lot of kind of commercially based work. Let me just find it on my computer here.
Mhm.
Okay, so just share my screen. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, I can see that.
So I worked in Dubai with a really, really good client called Shihab Hamad, and he set up a company called 5Green, which I was part of developing the brand for, which was a retail and art-based collective. They imported a lot of fashion, but also did a lot of events. And so I produced a visual identity with my business partner, Joby Barnard, doing all sorts of collateral, working in Arabic as well as English. And it was very much a kind of a great opportunity to work in another country, to understand how other cultures work, but also to play with quite a large visual identity. And this kind of work, as well as I did things like designed photographers' books, visual identities, identities for fashion designers, for a company called Innocent Drinks. I did branding for them, for a festival. So lots and lots of different, quite commercial work, and from here I ended up doing some lecturing at UCA, and then eventually became a full-time lecturer, and then gradually went on to lead the courses here in Farnham. And what I found is that actually the thing that I really, really enjoyed was and enjoyed teaching was typography. And the central part of any good designer is typography. If you can't set type, you might as well not be a designer. So what I did is I did a series of programs with the graphics course here, and developed a system for teaching typography to students, which has led on to some real kind of success stories. So if I may, I'll quickly just show a couple of those success stories if we have time. So people like they come and study with us. They enjoy their time with us, and then what we want them to do is be successful in their kind of field, but also have a sense of achievement. And so this is just a couple of examples of our alumni. It may be people that you have heard of before. So people like Malika Favra. She's a really fantastic artist and designer. You can look at her on Instagram. Richard Lyons, and he was the lead UX designer for the new Apple VR. He led a team of 40 students, which was, this is an amazing opportunity and a lot of coverage from that. He was also part of the team that did the Airbnb branding as well. And then people like Jasmine Rees, who's done a lot of household products as well. So this system of teaching allowed students to really focus in on typography centrally first, but understanding what it means to create order in projects. And then from there, they would develop their own approach to design. So this is Chris Cox. He's all of us. Us Two Games, who did this game, which I don't know if you recognize. Maybe not.
Yeah. Yes.
Monument Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, our students, they come out with, this is Margot Carpentier. They come out with this really individual aesthetic, but it's all rooted in, at the beginning, a good understanding of typography, a good understanding of order, but also understanding who they are as well. So this was the kind of switch for me. And so from there, I personally wanted to understand my own practice, my own approach to designing. And I did that through parametric and systems-based logic in terms of thinking about mapping, in terms of parameters. And so when I did my studies for my master's, I got really into kind of creating systems for study and analyzing in a much more scientific way an approach to a project. And then as I developed my own kind of sonic-based stuff, I applied those principles to the study of the sound-based projects. So the projects I'm doing now, you can look on the website, are using AI, but exploring the idea of soul and the idea that AI and soul don't go together. So we've done a series of performances, live sound performances with AI, to try and understand how can you evoke a feeling of X, because AI has never lived through trauma. AI has never lived through pain or love. It only knows what it is, but it hasn't felt it. And so that's the next thing that I'm kind of interested in is, okay, well, where are we going as artists and designers? It's the soul. And so that was our latest performance. We did it last month, and there's some written work on the page. I can put in a link in the chat maybe for you to have a look at.
Hey,
Yeah.
great. And then you were teaching in UCA typography and sound at the same time?
So I'm director of school now, which means I'm more doing the oversight and directing, directing where the school goes, what we develop, who we work with. But I'm very much interested in and still doing various workshops. So just before Christmas, I did a calligraphy workshop with the students, a very large format calligraphy workshop. So I'm more on the side of development and look at the strategy of the university and where we're going as a university now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And can you show the little paper drawing from Yeonji?
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
It was very
Let me
nice
just...
because she was the first student to go to UCA to study
So,
at PaTI. Yeah,
can you see that okay?
Yeah.
So we have this one. I've got 3 in my office.
It was a gift from her, or?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
And then I have
beautiful.
one last one.
Very beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. Can you see that? Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I mean, our aspiration for students is that they have a lot of fun whilst studying, number one. Number two, we want them to find their true selves, so not feel like they have to work in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
So they really understand who they are and how to work.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, understand the principles of the subject so that they can criticize the subject based on knowledge rather than on hunch.
Mm-hmm.
And then number four is to find a career in the creative sector.
Very important.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, I gave a couple of examples of some of our alumni. You know, those students we encouraged to experiment and play, but we put them through a very difficult and busy first and second year of restriction to them in the third year being very open and ready to
Mm-hmm.
explore. So that kind of personally, I think that kind of development for students is really important to understand the parameters. Yeah.
Great. So, one last question for you, Tom, because it seems like you were wandering around your childhood memory and space and like sound ambience of today and how do you find your like sound work that you have just shown to us influence or help to understand your like memory or your
Yeah,
childhood? Yeah.
that's a good one.
Mhm.
I think so. There's a number of things in there. So the first thing is I chose to do a record because a record is finished. It's never you can never change it. Once it's made into vinyl,
Mhm.
it is a recording that will never change. And I think in the digital age, we're in the constant era of beta. Nothing's ever finished. Okay,
Mhm.
so that was the first decision I made. So what I wanted to do was almost draw a line around it and say, this is my memory, this is my sound memory
Mhm.
of those places. Because years later, I found it quite confusing that I could listen to Swiss but not completely understand it. Also, my auntie said sometimes I used to speak Swiss when I was little, which I never knew, which I found that quite interesting.
Mhm.
And so it kind of gave me an opportunity to, I don't know, grieve a language, okay, to see, okay, what does it mean to have known a language but not known a language at all?
Mhm.
Um,
Interesting.
so that was it was quite exciting and interesting, but at the same time quite sad,
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
And because you think, well, what if I did speak Swiss German? Could I communicate with my family better? You know,
Mhm.
would I have been living in Switzerland
Mhm.
if I hadn't not known the language? So there's all those different things associated with it. Yeah.
Great. It was very
Thank you.
nice to listen to your talk and was it's still surprising for me that you're working on sound and typography at the same time. It's still very uh, surprising and amazing, and I find it really interesting. And also it opens up so many different ideas around surrounding the subject of typography, language, and visual representations, and so it was very interesting. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Can I ask that you get a record player at PaTI and put on the record and listen to it?
yeah, sure.
Maybe when you're back together.
Yeah, I need
Um,
to try to find the record player first,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm sure I will get one. Yep.
yeah. And you can have a beer and sit and listen to it with the students and see what you think. And I'd be interested to get some feedback from the
Sure,
students
Yep.
about how it made them feel. Yeah,
Yep, I will.
great. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, and
Is
I hope you can visit again PaTI sometime
Yes,
soon.
I'd like that very much. Maybe do a workshop. I'd like that. Okay, thank you. See
Thanks.
you.
Bye now.
Bye. Bye.